Well, we're back on the only flat surface that we have here at the homestead, which is the back patio. Don't mind the barbecue. And getting started on another project. It's time to get the new planter going for out there. It is the middle of winter, the end of winter, and we got to make sure that stuff is where it needs to be, because we got about a month and a half before we have indoor starts. So doing some work out on the mound and starting on a planter. We'll see how it goes. Okay, so one side sitting here, illustrated by the 4 full-length fence boards. One side worth of interior spars, second side worth of interior spars, both end caps. So I'm changing these up a little bit from the way that I did the planters that are out in the front and the way that I did the chicken brooder. It's basically the same design. It's just made a lot heavier. See, the chicken brooder, we only use 2x4s on the end caps, and then we used 1x in there because none of this is structural. When I did the planters in the front yard, I replaced those 1xs with 2x4s, and then we put a false bottom in similar to this. I'm adding the extra 2x4 in the center, and I'm going to space those supports over a little bit because I want them to be a little stronger in the backyard. It's probably overkill, but I think it's the better way to go. So we're going to end up with one in the center and then the 2 outboard ones. That's why these are a little different from the last ones. Okay, so the next step, we set them up. We mark them every 18 inches, so 18, 36, 54, and then drill them because these are cedar fence boards and I really don't want them to split. So after these are marked, I take a scrap piece that gets used as a straight edge, and it's marked not from 18 inches out because I didn't have a long enough board. So we marked in the center and then we went 18 inches on either side. That gives us this frame. So what this does is it holds the 3 spars at the same height. We can check them for 90 degrees, make sure that they're square-ish, and then we'll take these, set them on top, and run the screws down in through them. Okay, so that's been screwed together, and now it's one panel. Now, we do have some gaps. I moved the boards around about as much as I could to try and minimize it, but they sat outside overnight and they worked. So, kind of got to do the best you can do with what you got. So for me, that's the fastest way to build a panel. I'll build the other side, I'll build the 2 end caps, and then we'll catch up again. Alright, so for the layout on the sideboards, the way that we build these is they're 3x6. So those are, the long ones are full-size fence boards, and then these ones, we just cut them straight in half. And we don't worry about that because there's a 2x4 and it all covers it up nicely. So on these, we just come in half the distance of a 2x4, roughly that, mark it and drill your holes. Do that on both sides, and then these will get screwed on like that. Okay, and so do the same thing where I use the 2x4 to try and line everything up. And now I have an end panel. Looks like that. Alright, so now that we're at this point, we've got all of our panels built and they'll stand themselves up. When we attach these, we got to go through this edge and drill holes so that we don't split, and then we're going to screw into these 2x4s here. This will end up sitting like that. So we do that for each side, both of the long ones. Alright, so now we've got these supports are in, they've been screwed in on both sides. We've cut our 2x3 to length, and we've got it marked. That's where the other board comes in, so we're going to notch this section out because I'm stupid and I like to make things more difficult than they need to be, and that'll allow it to sit flush with the 2x4s at the bottom. So on the stretcher board, this is where I marked, this is where the 2x4 sits. Instead of trying to notch just that section out, I'm going to cut this whole piece away. Alright, and so now those notches are cut, and that sits right on top like that. So the next thing to do is take these 2x2s, and they're going to get bolted on the side, running along there so they're even with the top of the 2x4 on either side. So the distance between those inside 2x4s is 65 inches. Yeah, I mean, you just kind of got to find a way to make it work. Alright, so the edge stretchers are in. That one just drops into place. So now I've got all kinds of support for the cedar fence boards that are going to go side to side here. Okay, so now we have all the floorboards cut and laid in place, and now all I have to do is empty 2 existing planters, move them, flatten the ground, put this in place, and then fill it. Nothing to it.